A farmer's leap through time. What if a modern American farmer, armed with 21st century know-how, found himself stranded in the frozen wilds of ancient Russia, where starvation looms like a shadow over a desperate people? Could one man's ingenuity defy the brutal hand of fate, or would he crumble under the weight of a world not his own? In this thrilling tale, you'll uncover how a single spark of knowledge can rewrite history, face impossible odds, and unlock secrets that will leave you questioning. What would you do if time itself threw you into the unknown? Stay with us to witness a heart-pounding journey of survival, wit, and a mysterious portal that could change everything. The wind howled like a pack of wolves across the endless snowfields, a bone-chilling gust that clawed at the skin and froze the breath in your lungs. It was the year 900 AD, somewhere in the vast, untamed lands of Kievan Rus, where winter didn't just arrive, it conquered. Villages huddled beneath blankets of ice, their wooden huts creaking under the weight of snow, while fields lay barren, choked by frost. Starvation was no longer a threat. It was a promise, whispered in every empty belly and every hopeless glance toward the sky. The people of this forgotten corner of the world had prayed to their gods, old and new, but the heavens answered only with more snow. And then, like a bolt of lightning splitting the dark, he appeared. Carter Hayes, a 35-year-old farmer from Nebraska, was no stranger to hardship. Back in 2025, he'd wrestled with drought, debt, and the fickle markets of modern America. With his calloused hands and sun-creased face, he tamed fields of corn and soybeans under the blistering Midwest sun. His life was one of sweat, grit, and the quiet pride of feeding a nation. But nothing could have prepared him for this. One moment, Carter had been tinkering with his grandfather's old pocket watch in the barn, the air thick with the scent of hay and motor oil. The watch, a family heirloom etched with strange, swirling runes, had always been a curiosity, a relic his grandma swore was touched by something older than time. Carter, ever the skeptic, had chuckled as he polished it, the gears clicking softly under his thumb. Then a hum, a pulse, a flash of blinding light that swallowed the world whole. When his vision cleared, the barn was gone. The familiar hum of his tractor, the distant bark of his dog Rusty gone. Instead, he stood ankle-deep in snow, surrounded by towering pines and a sky so gray it seemed to press down on him. His flannel shirt and jeans were no match for the biting cold, and his work boots, caked with Nebraska dirt, sank into the alien frost. In his hand, the pocket watch still ticked, its runes glowing faintly before fading to dull metal. Carter's breath hitched as he realized this wasn't home. This wasn't even his time. He stumbled forward, heart pounding, until he reached a cluster of low, thatched huts. Faces peered from doorways, gaunt, wary, wrapped in furs. Men with braided beards and women with eyes like chipped flint stared at the stranger in strange clothes, muttering in a tongue Carter couldn't place. Old Slavic, maybe, rough and guttural. The villagers' fear was palpable, but so was their desperation. Their fields, Carter saw, were a wasteland of frozen stalks, the harvest lost to an unrelenting winter. These people were starving, and the next storm might be their last. Carter's mind raced. He wasn't a historian, but he knew enough to guess this was early medieval Russia, a land of tribes and princes, where survival was a daily battle against nature's wrath. He clutched the pocket watch, its weight grounding him. How had he gotten here? Why? And most importantly, how the hell was he getting back? But Carter wasn't the type to sit and sulk. He'd grown up on stories of pioneers, of men and women who carved life from nothing. If he was stuck in this frozen hell, he'd do what he did best, farm. He'd faced dying crops before, droughts in 18, floods in 22. This was just a new kind of challenge. And if there was one thing Carter Hayes knew, it was how to make things grow. He approached the villagers, hands raised to show he meant no harm. They flinched, clutching crude spears, but Carter's easy grin and slow gestures eased their tension. Using pantomime and a few halting words, his high school Russian from that one semester abroad helped a little. He pointed to the fields. "I can help," he said, hoping the meaning carried. "Food. Grow." The villagers exchanged glances, skeptical but intrigued. One man, broad-shouldered with a scar across his cheek, stepped forward. His name, Carter later learned, was Vsevolod, a farmer like him, though his tools were little more than sharpened sticks and hope. Carter surveyed the land, his farmer's eye cutting through the snow. The soil wasn't dead, just dormant, choked by cold and ignorance. He saw potential where the villagers saw only despair. Greenhouses, crop rotation, basic irrigation, ideas that were centuries away in this world, but second nature to him. If he could teach these people, they might survive the winter. Hell, they might thrive. But as Carter began sketching plans in the snow, rough outlines of glassless greenhouses made from wood and hides, he felt eyes on him. Not the villagers' curious stares, but something colder, sharper. From the edge of the village, a figure in a heavy fur cloak watched, flanked by two men with axes. A noble, maybe, or some local warlord's enforcer. His gaze wasn't just suspicious, it was dangerous. Carter didn't know it yet, but his arrival had sparked whispers. A stranger from nowhere, speaking of miracles, wielding knowledge no man should have. To some, he was a savior. To others, a threat. And in a land where trust was as scarce as food, Carter was about to learn that survival wasn't just about crops. It was about navigating a world ready to turn on him at the first misstep. Carter's journey is just beginning, and the stakes are about to skyrocket. How will a modern farmer convince a medieval world to trust his magic? What secrets does the pocket watch hold, and why did it bring him here? As danger closes in and a prince's ultimatum looms, you'll be on the edge of your seat, wondering if Carter can outsmart time itself, or if he'll be trapped forever in a frozen grave. Stick around, because the twists ahead will leave you hungry for more. Carter Hayes, a Nebraska farmer flung 1,000 years into the past, stood in the heart of a snow-choked village in Kievan Rus, 900 AD. His arrival, sparked by a mysterious pocket watch, had already stirred whispers among the desperate villagers. Starvation loomed, and their fields were graves of frost. But Carter wasn't just a stranger in strange clothes. He was a man with a plan, one born from centuries of agricultural knowledge these people couldn't even dream of. As the wind howled and suspicious eyes watched from the shadows, Carter rolled up his sleeves. He'd faced dying crops before. This was just another season to conquer, or so he thought. The village square was a flurry of activity, a chaotic dance of hope and skepticism under a sky that spat snow like insults. Carter, his breath steaming in the frigid air, stood atop a wooden crate, his flannel shirt a bizarre splash of red against the muted furs and linens of the villagers. His limited, Old Slavic, pieced together from half-remembered college lessons and frantic gestures, was barely enough to communicate, but his passion carried what words couldn't. "Food," he declared, pointing to the barren fields beyond the huts. "We make food grow here now." The villagers, gaunt and hollow-eyed, murmured. Some nodded, drawn to his confidence. Others crossed their arms, muttering about witchcraft. Vsevolod, the scarred farmer who'd first approached Carter, became his reluctant translator. His deep voice rumbled as he relayed Carter's ideas, though his eyes flickered with doubt. Carter didn't need a linguist to know trust was a hard sell in a land where survival was a daily gamble. But he had a secret weapon knowledge. Back in Nebraska, he'd built greenhouses to shield crops from late frosts. Here, glass was a fantasy, but wood, hides, and sheer ingenuity could do the trick. He sketched plans in the snow, long, low structures to trap heat, layered with animal skins for insulation. He explained crop rotation, a concept so alien that Vsevolod's translation faltered, drawing gasps from the crowd. "Turn the earth," one old woman whispered, clutching a wooden idol. "He speaks like a god." Carter grinned, wiping sweat from his brow despite the cold. "Not a god," he said, thumping his chest. "Just a farmer." The crowd chuckled, a rare sound in this bleak winter, and Carter seized the moment. He called for volunteers, pointing to the strongest men and women. "We build, we plant, we eat." His enthusiasm was infectious, and soon, a dozen villagers stepped forward, their faces a mix of curiosity and desperation. The work began at dawn the next day. Carter, fueled by a stubborn streak and the memory of his family's farm, led the charge. He showed them how to dig shallow trenches for warmth, how to layer pine boughs and hides to create makeshift greenhouses. He taught them to save seeds from their meager stores, turnips, rye, and a few hardy herbs, planting them in soil he'd tested with his fingers, still caked with Nebraska dirt. The villagers watched wide-eyed as he mixed manure and ash to enrich the frozen ground, explaining how it would wake the earth. To them, it was magic. To Carter, it was just Tuesday. But not everyone was charmed. From the edge of the village, the fur-cloaked figure Carter had noticed before lingered. His presence, like a storm cloud. His name, Carter learned, was Oleg, a minor noble who served the local prince, Rurik of Novgorod. Oleg's sharp eyes missed nothing, and his whispers to his axe-wielding guards carried a weight that made Vsevolod's shoulders tense. "He thinks you're a sorcerer," Vsevolod muttered one evening as they hauled timber. "Or a spy. Either way, he'll report to Rurik. And Rurik doesn't like strangers." Carter shrugged, though his gut tightened. "Let him watch. We've got crops to save." But Oleg's scrutiny wasn't the only problem. The villagers, though eager, were clumsy with Carter's methods. One man, Ivan, nearly collapsed a greenhouse frame by misjudging the supports. A woman, Marina, argued fiercely that planting in winter was blasphemy, her voice rising until Vsevolod calmed her with a stern word. And the weather, God, the weather. Each night, the cold deepened, frost creeping into the greenhouses like a thief. Carter worked until his hands bled, teaching, adjusting, reassuring. He called the snow the crop killer, a phrase that drew nervous laughs from the villagers, but became a rallying cry. "Beat the crop killer," they'd shout, hammering stakes or piling hides. Days turned into weeks, and the first green shoots appeared, tiny, defiant sprigs of rye pushing through the soil. The villagers gasped, some falling to their knees, others weeping. Carter, exhausted but grinning, felt a surge of pride. He'd done this back home 1,000 times, but here it was a miracle. The village buzzed with hope, and even Vsevolod clapped Carter's shoulder, his scar crinkling with a rare smile. "You're mad, American," he said, the word strange in his mouth, but maybe good mad. The triumph was short-lived. One gray morning, as Carter inspected the greenhouses, hooves thundered into the village. Oleg rode at the head of a dozen men, their furs adorned with iron, their faces hard as the ice beneath their horses. At their center was a man whose presence silenced the village, Prince Rurik, his blond beard braided with silver, his eyes like a hawk's. He dismounted, his cloak sweeping the snow, and fixed Carter with a stare that could freeze blood. "You," he said, his voice low but commanding, Vsevolod translating with a tremble. "The stranger who defies winter. Oleg says you work miracles. Or treachery." Carter stood tall, though his heart pounded. "Just trying to feed your people, sir," he said, hoping his tone carried respect. Rurik's lips twitched, not quite a smile. "My people starve," he said. "My scouts say the frost will not lift for months. If you are no sorcerer, prove your worth. You have 7 days to make these fields yield enough to feed my city. Fail, and you'll wander the tundra until the wolves claim you." The crowd gasped, and Carter's stomach dropped. 7 days? He'd barely gotten the greenhouses stable, and scaling up to feed thousands was a pipe dream. But Rurik's eyes offered no mercy, and Oleg's smirk promised worse if Carter refused. 7 days, Carter repeated, nodding. "I'll do it." The prince mounted his horse, his voice carrying over the wind. "Succeed, and you'll have my favor. Fail, and your bones will mark this failure." With that, he rode off, Oleg's gaze lingering like a blade. The village erupted into chaos. Some villagers begged Carter to flee, fearing his failure would doom them all. Others, like Marina, prayed fervently, clutching their idols. Vsevolod, ever loyal, rallied the workers, but even he whispered, 7 days is impossible, Carter." Carter didn't disagree, but he'd faced long odds before, bank loans, hailstorms, his father's cancer. He clutched the pocket watch, its faint warmth a reminder of the mystery that brought him here. Maybe it held answers, but for now, he had a deadline. Carter threw himself into the work, his mind racing. He expanded the greenhouses, teaching the villagers to build faster, stronger. He introduced basic irrigation, diverting a nearby stream with crude channels. He experimented with night fires to warm the soil, the flames casting eerie shadows as the villagers worked past dusk. Sleep became a memory, his body aching, his hands raw. The cold was relentless, snapping supports and wilting sprouts. One night, a blizzard tore through, collapsing half a greenhouse. Carter cursed, his voice lost in the storm, but he rallied the team to rebuild by dawn. The villagers began to believe in him, their fear giving way to awe. Marina, once skeptical, brought him hot broth, her eyes soft with gratitude. Ivan, the clumsy one, worked until his fingers bled, chanting "Beat the crop killer" like a mantra. But Oleg's men lingered, watching, reporting. Carter felt the noose tightening. If he failed, it wasn't just his life. Rurik might punish the village for trusting a stranger. On the fifth night, as Carter adjusted a fire pit, Vsevolod pulled him aside. "There's talk," he whispered. "Oleg claims you're a spy for the Khazars, poisoning the prince's trust. He's pushing Rurik to act early." Carter's jaw clenched. He'd heard of the Khazars, a rival power. Oleg was playing politics, and Carter was the pawn. "Let him talk," Carter said, but doubt gnawed at him. He needed a miracle, and he needed it fast. By day 6, the greenhouses were producing rye, turnips, even some herbs, enough to feed a few hundred, but not a city. Carter's calculations were grim. He needed more time, more warmth, more everything. That night, he sat alone, the pocket watch in his hand. Its runes glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. He pressed it, whispered, "Why me?" No answer came, but the glow steadied him. He wasn't done yet. Carter's back is against the wall, with only one day left to defy a prince's ultimatum. Will his modern knowledge outsmart the brutal winter, or will Oleg's schemes and the relentless cold bury him? What secrets does the pocket watch hide, and can it save him from exile, or worse? The stakes are climbing, and the next twist will leave you breathless. Stay tuned for a showdown that will test Carter's grit and reveal a mystery that could change everything. Carter Hayes, a Nebraska farmer stranded in the frozen wilds of Kievan Rus in 900 AD, was down to his last day. Prince Rurik's ultimatum hung over him like a guillotine. Produce enough crops to feed a starving city in 7 days, or face exile to the merciless tundra. His makeshift greenhouses, built with wood, hides, and sheer grit, had sprouted rye and turnips. Miracles to the villagers, but a drop in the bucket for Rurik's demands. Suspicion swirled, led by the scheming noble Oleg, who branded Carter a spy or sorcerer. As snow fell thicker and the clock ticked down, Carter clutched his glowing pocket watch, its runes a tantalizing mystery. This was it, his make-or-break moment. Failure meant death, not just for him, but for the village that had dared to believe in a stranger from another time. The dawn of the 7th day broke with a sky so heavy it seemed to crush the village under its weight. Snow fell in relentless sheets, the wind screaming like a banshee through the pines. Carter stood in the center of the village, his flannel shirt tattered, his face gaunt from sleepless nights. The greenhouses, now a dozen strong, glowed faintly with the light of fire pits, their warmth a fragile shield against the crop killer. The villagers, Vsevolod, Marina, Ivan, and others, gathered around, their faces a mix of hope and dread. They'd seen Carter's miracles, but Rurik's army was coming, and whispers of Oleg's betrayal had spread like wildfire. The noble had spent the week poisoning Rurik's ear, claiming Carter's foreign magic was a Khazar plot to weaken Novgorod. Carter's breath steamed as he rallied his crew. "Today's the day," he said, his voice steady despite the knot in his gut. "We've got enough rye and turnips to feed a few hundred. We need thousands. So we push harder, smarter." Vsevolod translated, his scar twitching as he nodded. The villagers, fueled by Carter's defiance, sprang into action. They reinforced greenhouse frames, stoked fires, and hauled water from the half-frozen stream Carter had diverted. Marina, once a skeptic, now led a group of women in packing soil, her hands deft and her eyes fierce. Ivan, the clumsy giant, worked with a focus Carter hadn't seen, chanting "Beat the crop killer" under his breath. But the cold was a beast. Frost crept into the greenhouses, blackening delicate sprouts. One structure groaned under the snow's weight, its supports cracking. Carter cursed, diving into the snow to brace it, his fingers numb. "We need more heat," he shouted, directing Ivan to pile more wood on the fires. Smoke billowed, stinging eyes, but the warmth held just barely. Carter's mind raced, calculating yields. He'd optimized every inch of soil, but Rurik City needed a harvest 10 times what they had. He needed a game changer, something to tip the scales. That's when the pocket watch burned in his pocket. Carter yanked it out, its runes pulsing brighter than ever, casting an eerie glow on the snow. The villagers froze, some clutching idols, others whispering prayers. Vsevolod's eyes widened. "What is that, American?" he demanded. Carter didn't know, but the watch's warmth felt like a lifeline. He'd ignored it too long, focused on crops, but now, with hours left, he pressed its face, tracing the runes. A faint hum vibrated through his bones, and for a split second, he saw it. A flash of his Nebraska barn, the scent of hay, the hum of his tractor. Then it was gone, leaving only the ticking watch and the spark of an idea. "Greenhouses aren't enough," Carter muttered, his mind racing. "We need to cheat the cold." Back in 2025, he'd read about ancient farmers using hotbeds, piles of decaying manure to generate heat for crops. It was risky, messy, but it could boost yields fast. He turned to Vsevolod. "Get every scrap of manure, cow, horse, whatever. Pile it under the greenhouses. It'll warm the soil like a furnace." Vsevolod hesitated, his face twisting at the idea, but Carter's urgency won him over. The villagers scrambled, hauling reeking piles into the greenhouses, layering them beneath the crops. The stench was brutal, but Carter grinned as the soil warmed, coaxing new growth from struggling plants. By midday, the greenhouses were thriving. Rice stalks stood taller, turnips swelled. The villagers cheered 10:12 a.m. plus 07 on Thursday, May 22nd. 2025 marveled, some crossing themselves, others cheering. Carter's heart pounded. This could work. But time was slipping away, and hoofbeats echoed in the distance. Rurik was coming. The prince arrived at dusk, his retinue a dark line against the snow. Oleg rode at his side, his smirk sharp as a blade. Rurik dismounted, his presence commanding silence. "Show me," he said, his voice like iron. Vsevolod led him to the greenhouses, Carter trailing, his pulse racing. The prince inspected the crops, his face unreadable. The yield was impressive, rows of green, enough to feed perhaps 1,000, but Rurik's eyes narrowed. "This is not enough," he said, Vsevolod's translation trembling. "You promised a city fed. Novgorod starves while you play with dirt." Carter's stomach dropped. He'd known it was a long shot, but the greenhouses were a miracle by this era standards. He stepped forward, his voice steady. "This is just the start, my lord. These crops will grow stronger every day. With more time." Rurik cut him off, his hand raised. "You have no more time. Oleg speaks truth. You are no savior. A spy, perhaps, or a fool. Either way you fail." Oleg's eyes gleamed, and Carter realized the trap. Oleg had set him up, knowing no man could meet such a demand in 7 days. Exile was certain, unless Carter could turn this around. Desperation sparked a memory. Back in Nebraska, Carter's uncle had once saved a failing crop with a crude fertilizer mix, manure, ash, and crushed bone. It was a long shot, but Carter had nothing to lose. He whispered to Vsevolod, "Get bones, animal, fish, anything. Grind them fine and mix with ash." Vsevolod, trusting Carter's madness, rallied the villagers. They worked through the night, grinding bones with stones, mixing them into the soil. The hotbeds, already warm, seemed to hum with new life. By dawn, the crops had surged, rye doubled in height, turnips bulging. It wasn't enough for a city, but it was enough to prove a point. As Rurik prepared to pronounce judgment, Carter led him to the greenhouses. The prince's eyes widened at the sight, fields alive where death had reigned. "This is no sorcery," Carter said, Vsevolod translating. "This is knowledge. Give me a season and Novgorod eats." The villagers held their breath, Marina clutching her idol, Ivan's fists clenched. Oleg stepped forward, his voice oily. "He buys time with tricks, my lord. Banish him now." Rurik's gaze shifted between Carter and the crops. Silence stretched, the wind howling. Then a slow nod. You have 1 month, Rurik said. Feed my city, or your life is forfeit. He mounted his horse, leaving Oleg fuming and the village cheering. Carter had won for now, but as the crowd dispersed, a tufted bearded 2SI approached, his eyes sharp. Your watch, he whispered, pointing to the glowing runes. It is no trinket. It is a key to a door beyond time. Carter's blood ran cold. The 2SI knew something, and the watch's secrets were about to unravel. Carter's pulled off the impossible, but the clock's still ticking. With Oleg's schemes festering and a mysterious 2SI hinting at a door beyond time. What lies ahead? Will Carter feed a city or face Rurik's wrath? And what is the pocket watch's true power? The final chapter promises heart-stopping twists and a revelation that will leave you desperate for more. Carter Hayes, a Nebraska farmer stranded in the frozen heart of Kievan Rus in 900 AD, had defied the odds. With his modern knowledge, he turned barren fields into greenhouses teeming with rye and turnips, staving off Prince Rurik's threat of exile. But the prince's new ultimatum loomed: feed the entire city of Novgorod in 1 month, or forfeit his life. Oleg, the scheming noble, still whispered poison, branding Carter a spy or sorcerer. And now, a cryptic 2SI had hinted that Carter's glowing pocket watch, a relic that had hurled him through time, was a key to a door beyond time. As the snow fell and the village buzzed with fragile hope, Carter stood at a crossroads. He'd conquered the crop killer once, but the real battle was just beginning, and the watch's secrets pulsed in his hand, promising answers or deeper peril. The month that followed was a blur of sweat, fire, and defiance. Carter threw himself into the work, his Nebraska grit fueled by the ticking clock of Rurik's deadline. The village, once skeptical, now moved as one, their hands calloused but their spirits high. Vsevolod, the scarred farmer, became Carter's right hand, barking orders with a newfound fire. Marina, her faith in Carter unshakable, led the women in planting and tending crops, her prayers now mixed with chants of "beat the crop killer." Ivan, the clumsy giant, had found his rhythm, hauling timber and manure with a grin that lit up the gloom. The greenhouses multiplied, stretching across the village like a patchwork of hope, their fires glowing against the endless winter night. Carter pushed his knowledge to its limits. He refined the hotbeds, layering manure and bone meal to coax every ounce of life from the soil. He taught the villagers to stagger plantings, ensuring a steady yield. He even rigged crude windbreaks from pine boughs to shield the greenhouses from the relentless gales. Each dawn brought new growth, rice stalks reaching for the sky, turnips swelling like small miracles. The villagers began to whisper of Carter as the firebringer, a title that made him laugh, though it carried a weight he couldn't ignore. To them, he was half myth, half man, and their belief pushed him harder. But Oleg was never far. The nobles' men lurked at the village's edge, their eyes sharp and their reports swift. Carter caught glimpses of Oleg himself, his fur cloak a dark stain against the snow, whispering to riders who galloped toward Novgorod. Vsevolod warned Carter late one night, his voice low over a flickering fire. Oleg tells Rurik you're building an army, not crops. He says your firehouses hide weapons for the Khazars. Carter's jaw tightened. He'd heard of medieval politics. Backstabbing was as deadly as any blizzard. If Oleg swayed Rurik, no harvest would save him. The pocket watch, too, gnawed at Carter's mind. Its runes glowed brighter each night, humming with a rhythm that matched his heartbeat. The 2SIS words echoed, a door beyond time. Carter had taken to meeting the old man in secret, under the guise of fetching water. The 2SI, named Brother Grigory, spoke in riddles, his eyes gleaming with a mix of fear and awe. "The watch is no trinket," he said one night, his voice barely above the wind. "It was forged by hands not of this world, meant to bridge past and future. But every door has a price." Carter pressed for more, but Grigory only shook his head. "Find the door, Firebringer. It lies where the earth bleeds light." Carter had no time for riddles, but Grigory's words haunted him. He scoured the village for clues, noticing strange carvings on ancient stones near the stream, runes like those on his watch. One night, as he traced them, the watch pulsed, and the ground beneath hummed faintly, a glow flickering in the soil. Carter's heart raced. Was this the door? Could it take him home to Nebraska, to his barn and his dog Rusty? Or was it a trap, another twist in this frozen nightmare? The final day of Rurik's deadline dawned with a deceptive calm. The snow had eased, but the air was sharp enough to cut. Carter stood before a harvest that stunned even him. Rows of rye, turnips, and herbs, enough to feed Novgorod for weeks, maybe months. The greenhouses, now 20 strong, were a testament to his ingenuity and the village's faith. As the villagers loaded carts with crops, bound for the city, Carter felt a flicker of pride. He'd done the impossible, but his gut told him it wasn't over. Rurik arrived at midday, his retinue larger than before, their armor glinting under a weak sun. Oleg rode at his side, his smirk sharper than ever. The prince dismounted, his boots crunching the snow as he inspected the harvest. The villagers stood silent, their breath visible, their hope hanging by a thread. Rurik's face was stone as he lifted a turnip, then a sheaf of rye. "This is your miracle," he said, Vsevolod translating with a tremor. "It is much, but not enough. Novgorod's hunger is a beast you cannot tame in a month." Carter's heart sank, but he stepped forward, his voice steady. "This is the start, my lord. These crops will keep growing. Your city won't starve, not now, not ever, if you let us continue." Rurik's eyes narrowed, and Oleg seized his chance. "Lies," he spat. "He builds not for us, but for our enemies. Search his firehouses. You'll find proof of treachery." Rurik's hand went to his sword, and the villagers gasped, some clutching each other. Carter's mind raced. Oleg had planned this, planting doubt to ensure his downfall. Then a shout. Ivan, red-faced and panting, burst from a greenhouse, holding aloft a crude iron tool, a Khazar dagger, its blade etched with foreign script. "Found it," he roared, his voice shaking. "Hidden in the soil." The crowd froze, and Oleg's smirk faltered. Carter's blood ran cold. It was a plant, a setup to seal his fate. Rurik's gaze turned lethal. "Explain this, Firebringer," he growled. Carter's mind spun. He had seconds to act. He clutched the pocket watch, its glow now a beacon in his palm. "That dagger's not mine," he said, his voice rising. "Oleg wants me gone because I'm saving your people. Search his men's packs. You'll find more where that came from." It was a gamble, but Carter's years of reading people, bankers, buyers, neighbors, told him Oleg's arrogance was his weakness. Rurik hesitated, then barked an order. His guard seized Oleg's men, and within moments, another dagger was found, tucked in a saddlebag. Oleg's face paled, his lies unraveling. Rurik turned to Carter, his expression softening. "You have proven yourself," he said. "Your harvest is a gift to Novgorod. Stay, and you shall be my advisor, a lord of the fields." The villagers erupted in cheers, Marina weeping, Ivan pumping his fist. Oleg was dragged away, his curses lost in the wind. Carter exhaled, the weight lifting, but his eyes drifted to the watch. The victory was sweet, but the two SIS words lingered. A door. A price. That night, as the village celebrated with crude ale and roasted turnips, Brother Grigory pulled Carter aside. He led him to the stream, where the runed stones glowed faintly under moonlight. The watch burned in Carter's hand, its hum deafening. "This is the door," Grigory whispered. "Step through, and you may return to your time, or be lost forever. Choose quickly, Firebringer, for the door wakes only once." Carter stared at the stones, the glow pulsing in time with his heart. Home was there, Nebraska, his farm, his life. But here, he'd built something extraordinary, saved a people, become a legend. And what if the door led not to 2025, but somewhere, someone else? He turned to Grigory, the watch heavy in his hand. "What's the price?" he asked. The two SIS eyes gleamed. "Only time will tell." As Carter stepped toward the glowing stones, the world held its breath. Carter's won a hero's place in a world not his own, but the glowing door beckons. Will he step through to reclaim his life, or stay as Novgorod's savior? What dangers lie beyond the portal, and what secrets does the watch still hide? The answers are coming in our next thrilling chapter. Subscribe and stay tuned to find out what fate awaits the Firebringer.